September 24th, 1869, Black Friday. The gold room on Wall Street has devolved into a literal mosh pit of screaming men in silk hats. The air is thick with the smell of panic and ink. In the corner, a man drops dead from a heart attack as he watches his entire family fortune dissolve in 45 seconds. Outside, the streets of Manhattan are vibrating with the footsteps of an angry mob. They are looking for two men, Gould and James Fisk. These men didn't just steal money. They cornered the American government and held the entire nation's economy for ransom. By noon, the price of gold is crashing so hard it is pulling the value of every farm, every factory, and every paycheck in America down with it. The dream of the Gilded Age just turned into a nightmare of cold, hard metal. To understand how two men almost owned the United States Treasury, we have to look at the world they lived in. After the Civil War, America was a mess of paper. The government had printed greenbacks, paper money that wasn't backed by gold to fund the war. But the real money, the stuff the big players used to settle international debts, was still gold. This created two parallel worlds, the world of paper that regular people used and the gold room, where speculators gambled on the fluctuating value between the two. Gould was the brain. He was small, quiet, and possessed a mind like a razor blade. James Fisk was the muscle and the mouth, flamboyant, loud, and incredibly charming. Together, they controlled the Erie Railroad. But railroads weren't enough. They wanted to control the very air the economy breathed. They wanted to corner the gold market. Cornering a market is a simple, terrifying concept. If you buy up almost all of a specific commodity, in this case, gold, anyone who needs gold has to buy it from you at whatever price you set. But there was one massive obstacle standing in their way: the United States Treasury. The government held massive reserves of gold, and if the price got too high, the president could order the Treasury to sell that gold, flooding the market and crashing the price. Gould and Fisk knew they couldn't beat the president, so they decided to buy in. They began a high-stakes game of influence banking. They befriended President Ulysses S. Grant's brother-in-law, Abel Corbin. They paid him off and used him to get close to the president. They sat at the president's dinner table, whispering that if the government sold its gold, it would hurt the farmers by lowering crop prices. It was a brilliant lie. They weren't protecting farmers. They were clearing the path for the biggest heist in history. By September, they had convinced the president to keep the Treasury's gold locked away. They began buying, and buying, and buying. The price of gold began to climb. 130, 140, 150. To the rest of the world, it looked like the economy was booming. In reality, it was a hollow show being inflated by two men in a back room. Before we go any further, drop a comment and let us know where in the world you are watching this from. It genuinely surprises us every time how far these stories travel. As the price of gold hit 160, the entire American financial system began to buckle. Merchants who needed gold to pay for imported goods couldn't afford it. Foreign trade froze. On the floor of the gold room, brokers were losing their minds. They were selling short, betting that the price would go down, but Gould and Fisk kept driving it up. These brokers were facing total ruin. They owed millions for gold they didn't have. But Gould, the silent spider, noticed something. He saw a change in the wind. He realized that the president had finally figured out the scam. Gould didn't tell his partner, Fisk. He didn't tell his friends, while Fisk was still on the trading floor, loudly shouting to buy more gold to keep the price up. Gould was secretly selling every ounce he owned. Then came the message from Washington. Treasury was opening the vaults. $4 million in gold was being dumped onto the market. The result was a vertical drop. In minutes, the price of gold plummeted from 160 to 133. It was the financial equivalent of an elevator cable snapping. Thousands of people who had been caught up in the frenzy, regular investors, small-town bankers, even the brokers Gould and Fisk had used, were wiped out instantly. The $160 million fraud had broken the back of Wall Street. Fisk and Gould retreated to their fortified office, protected by armed guards, as the mob gathered outside. In the end, they used their legal connections to avoid jail. They kept their profits while the rest of the country slid into a recession. This story of 1869 isn't just about a market crash. It's about the terrifying realization that a few determined people can hijack the systems meant to protect us. The Gold Room wasn't a marketplace. It was a crime scene. What it reveals about human nature is unsettling. We see the brilliance of Gould, a man who could see the entire board while everyone else was focused on a single pawn. We see the arrogance of Fisk, who believed that personality could override the laws of math. But most importantly, we see the fragility of trust. The entire U.S. economy was nearly destroyed not by a lack of resources, but by a lack of honesty. The architects of the post-war economy tried to build a system of growth, but they forgot to build a system of accountability. They allowed the line between investment and gambling to disappear. Ordinary people, who had nothing to do with the Gold Room, saw their savings lose value and their jobs vanish because two men wanted to see how far they could push the world. History often remembers the heroes, but it's the predators who usually leave the deepest scars. The Black Friday of 1869 reminds us that money isn't just a medium of exchange, it is power, and in the wrong hands, that power can be used to tear down in a day what took a generation to build. If you want to keep exploring the hidden financial battles that shaped our modern world, make sure to like this video and subscribe. The stories of the 1800s aren't just about the past, they are mirrors held up to our present. Thanks for being here.